Today on How We Do Stuff, I'm making a what you got pie. You know, sometimes when you live off grid, you don't have the opportunity to go to the store. You don't have very many store-bought products. You just got to make something out of what you have. Today, we're going to make a savory meat herb pie. I had intended to make it in the solar oven, but that didn't really work out. But in this episode, we're going to kind of show you how you would make a meal with just what you have on hand. Only two items that I used, maybe two or three, that we wouldn't normally just have produced right from the property. I used a store-bought pie crust that we had on hand from the farmer's market from this past weekend, and then the butter. Right now we don't have a milk cow, so we did buy the butter. A few other little things, salt and pepper. Other than that, everything you see in the pie came from this property. Anyway, come on along and see how we do stuff. Alright, to start out this pie, we're going to pick a mess of greens and herbs. We've got a lot of Swiss chard this year. A lot of the spinaches and all that, because of the heat, have already bolted, but we've got a lot of chard, so that's going to be the main ingredient as far as our greens go. You could use mustard greens, collard greens, spinach if you have it, but we've got a whole lot of Swiss chard. The next thing I'm going to do is pick a lot of herbs, a lot of the savory herbs, and I'm going to start with sage, because I really like it, and because we've got a great little sage bush that's made it here through the droughts and everything else over the years, so I like to include it, like it's part of the family. And so you add sage to your taste. I'm going to add several different herbs as well. This is rosemary, and not too much rosemary. It's very easy to be overpowered with rosemary. And then I'm going to go down and pick some basil. And our basil's starting to bolt as well, but I pinch off the tops as best as I can, but I'm going to put some basil in there. Danielle's going to wash up the greens in some nice, cool cistern water. Alright, so I'm going to put a little bit of butter in the pan, and once this pan gets heated up, then we'll cut up our greens and put them in there and wilt them a little. It's going to be iffy if we can use the solar oven today. We're going to try it, but there's a lot of clouds, and we're not getting very much sun, so we got our fallback if we have to, and we'll put it in the propane oven. Alright, I'm going to cut up these greens. We're just going to put them in the frying pan and wilt them up a little bit, but I'm not cutting them real fine, just basically like you were making maybe a rhubarb pie. You don't want anybody getting a fork load and the piece is too big or too long to be able to put it in their mouth. Alright, so we're going to grease up a pie pan. We've got some of our own lard from our own pigs we got from out of the root cellar. We're just going to grease up this pan before we put the pie crust in. So I'm going to use a store-bought pie crust that we had left over from the farmer's market the other day. And you know, if we had a wheat crop this year, we've done it before, we could grind our own flour, we could make our own pie crust, but we're going to use this store-bought crust for today because it's one that we had. You really want to cut up more greens than you think that you're going to need, because they'll wilt a little and they'll shrink while they're in the frying pan. All right, so we brought in our greens from the solar oven, and it's looking as if we're not going to be able to bake this pie today in the solar oven. It's gotten really overcast outside. So, you know, that's one of the reasons we have multiple ways to do this. We didn't want to heat up the oven, the propane oven in the cottage, but that's what we're going to end up having to do. It's no big deal, so we're going to go ahead and build this pie. I'm going to start off by taking about half of these greens and spread them out kind of evenly. And I'm calling this What You Got pie because we're just sticking in it what we got. And I've got one good little squash from the garden. Our squash aren't doing that great yet this year, so I've got some more fermented squash we're going to put in there, and a few other things that we had either fermented or canned. Next thing is I'm going to take some beef, canned beef that was from a bull we butchered last year. If I can get this open. All right, so I've got this this beef, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit and make sure the fat, that good fat, is mixed up good. And then I'm just going to evenly, you want some in all the bites. So Alright, so next to my meat, before I put in some more vegetables, I want to make sure I get my seasoning in there. I've got some pepper here, and just, you know, pepper it to taste. A little bit of sea salt. Some of the fermented vegetables are going to be a little salty, so we won't add too much. Got a little bit of thyme here from our own garden. Some dill from this spring's, just a little bit of dill. A little cilantro, dried cilantro. Alright, so now we're going to start adding some more flavorful vegetables. We've got some garlic here that's fermented garlic. It's very, very aromatic. I like garlic. It's delicious. Got some fermented peppers. These are not hot peppers. They are sweet peppers. So we're going to put some of those in here. I like peppers. And I've got some fermented squash and zucchini from last year's crop. I'm going to pull that dill out of there. All right, now we're going to put in the rest of our greens. Trying to kind of get them good and spread out. All right. Okay, so we've got our top crust here, and we've cut a hole in the middle, and we're going to keep that middle part for later. But what we're going to do is lay our top crust on here, pinch it down real good. This is going to be ugly. I'm not the cake baker. Why don't I do that and you do this? This is on the spot Whatchagot pie. All right, so take the middle part there, and put it back on there. It's not quite in the middle, but we'll make it work. This is going to go into a preheated oven, about 400 degrees, for about 30 minutes. All right, so finishing up, we've got the pie in the oven, and what we're going to do now is we're going to take 3 egg yolks and about the same amount of milk. I'm going to mix this up real good. I'll put it in here so it'll pour better. All right, so there's about 10 or 12 minutes left in the cooking time, so we're going to pour this in here, the top hole. Let it sink in a little. All right, we're going to replace our little centerpiece. Stick her back in the oven. About 10 more minutes. I'll tell you what, that pie came out perfectly. It was really, really good, and I was actually pleasantly surprised that it came out so good. Everyone enjoyed it. So, hey, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of How We Do Stuff. I appreciate it so much that you guys tune in. Please subscribe if you haven't already done so. And also, if you have any questions or anything you'd like us to make a video about or anything you'd like to see, make sure you put those down in the comment section, and I'll make sure that I put it on my Thursday Q&A sessions. So anyways, that's how we do stuff. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll see you next episode.